All right, good evening, everybody. So I'm just going to do a follow-up video regarding car notes and how fucking insane they are. And I was watching another video. Let's see here. All right. So you kind of see where I'm going. So let me just kind of bear with me. All right. So let me just fucking go back to this window and just listen to this shit.
So just got my battery done, right? My front and my back brakes are also going out. Front brakes $3,500, $11.40. Back brakes $2,500, $13.96. I could have those backwards. All in all, $5,500. I want to rip this up.
I want to see what she's actually driving for that money.
That requires me to use my brakes. Come on, baby. See ya. Just get in. Y'all, they playing today.
Here's the thing about luxury cars. Nobody wants to talk about.
Oh, so it's an electric car, of course. So it's probably a Tesla. So, yeah, it's obviously going to be expensive. But let me go back. Let me go back to that window and see what everybody else is talking about.
So I paid $2,500 for this RX 350. See, I'm a used car dealer, and throughout this video, I'm going to go through a lot of the cars that I've been able to buy recently and tell you exactly how much I paid for them. And
oh, this one's a good one.
Over $73,000 for this F-150, but at least it's a 2025. But guess what? At this dealership right now, there's 2023s, and I'm about to that red vehicle, that Mach-E right there.
Hey, I figured out how to do the sharing thing. That's pretty fucking cool, man.
It's been at the lot for hundreds and hundreds, almost 2 years now. Insane. It's crazy, actually. And they actually had a Black Ops F-150 here for over 700 days as well. $52,000. Look at that. 2023, it's insane to see a 2023 electric vehicle still sitting on the Ford dealership's lot right now, and it's 2025. This is the situation they're in. Let's see, is this Lightning? They have a few Lightnings here. Let's hope they're not 23s as well. Let's see here. No, they're 2025s. Okay, $82,000. Wow, the amount of depreciation you will take on these. I mean, but how much is this already depreciated? This $50,000 vehicle, I mean, it's been here 2 years. It's a 2023 next to a 2025, brand new at the dealership lot. Yeah, they made a mistake. And this is what I'm saying. They say Ford sales are up. Well, there's still dealerships stuck with 2023, so I don't see it. But look at this. 46,000. This is a base model. Hey, 25 with the 5.0, under 50 grand. But still, it's a lot of money. But hey, at least Ford still offers that V8. Completely insane to see 2023 still sitting on the lot right now in 2025, and they're loaded. All they have is nothing but mainly trucks, obviously.
All right, let's check out the Toyota one.
What happened to Toyota? They used to be reliable and affordable. You walk up to a Tacoma now, and it's probably 60 turbo 6-cylinder. That's been a huge disaster with the huge recall that they did last year. And the Tacoma had a V6, and now it has a 4-cylinder turbo. And it's just
this is what I was talking about. Some of mine.
$1,000, for a 4-cylinder Toyota Tacoma
What the fuck
built in
happened?
Mexico. It's insane because Toyota's only paying less than $3 on average in hourly wage for the Mexico factory. But then they ship the vehicle over here and they charge enormous price tags. And Toyota could even increase it more now. Who knows? Because there's so many Toyota fanboys. That's the thing. People go to Toyota dealerships. They don't even know that they got rid of the V8 or the V6. They're just like, it's a Toyota. It's reliable. Or even if it's a $50,000 Camry, they're going to say, well, it's going to last forever. It is what it is. They're expensive. And those are probably the only Camrys that the dealership actually has in stock. Good luck getting a base model LE. And so Toyota has redesigned model after model, and every time they increase the price to the moon. And honestly,
All right, well, before I listen to a little bit of this one,
Hey gang, welcome back to the channel.
before I listen to this one, yeah, yeah. Tell me you don't think that's fucked up. Oh, cool. I see why. That's pretty cool. I'm learning about this tech shit, man. And I'm using a computer that's on its last legs, man. But all these insane car payments and like my own daily, like they got, you probably saw the whole Easter egg useless features, depending on how you look at it, Now, obviously, while those two channels I was watching before, they just basically they're talking about how everything's just fucking overpriced and how all the insane, like 5,000 for brakes. Obviously, that in that one's case, yeah, it was obviously an electric vehicle. But I mean, come on, I mean, no offense, but I personally think I'm leaning towards fucking, to say, fuck the cruise. I mean, it's just fucking crazy, man. Like, on top of that, you have to do the fucking, routine maintenance, all that shit, where it fucking tells you service due. And then you still have to fucking do it or, you risk avoiding the warranty. And, I've seen stories about that too, where somebody, missed an oil change and then something went wrong with the engine. Then it became a fucking customer pay instead of a fucking warranty issue. Now, obviously, with all that being said, I mean, if you watch my channel, I'm not the most popular guy on YouTube, but if you've seen my playlist when I took my Santa Cruz on Peters Mill Run, obviously I broke something, and while that one is technically on me for taking a vehicle on a place it wasn't made for. So that's on me, that's not a warranty issue, whatever. Because again, that's what you call a mistake. Obviously, I made it out of the trail, and hence, that was the real reason why I picked up, my other vehicle, the Tracker. It's a beater. I can take it on some trails, and I'm not going to give a shit if I get a ding on it. I know some people, could be on the school of thought of, why did you just get a Tacoma or a new Wrangler? Well, one, I know they're made for that, but if I take it on a trail, I'm probably still going to feel guilty about it. And, I do see people take this, on trails, of course. I don't know if they're super brand new or whatever. Maybe after a couple of years they might, but, not only are they getting crazy expensive, because of all the stuff they're putting in these new vehicles, but it's just getting harder and harder to work. If you saw my video, old tech versus new tech, I'll see if it'll let me post that, after I do the description. I don't know. I'm still learning how to, work all this new tech. But if you watch that video, you'll kind of see how, the engine bay of the Tracker, everything is like all, you can kind of see and recognize everything. On the Santa Cruz, you pop the hood, it's like huge sheets of plastic, all sorts of tubing, hell, even more wiring than in the Tracker, because it's a newer vehicle and much more computers. And if you saw closely where I showed the serpentine belt, like, how hard is it to get to that on that? Because, it's a side-mounted engine because it's a front-wheel drive bias. It's an all-wheel drive, but it's a front-wheel drive bias. So that's the thing. Replacing the belt on that, is probably going to be formidably expensive. And if I ever get to the point, that might be just one of those things where I'm just like, fuck it, I mean, I like the vehicle, I want to keep the vehicle, but, I got that, because at the time, I needed something new because my old vehicle, and I've always been under the pretense, I know, practice what you preach, right? Go on, teach away, practice what you preach. I kept that old truck, the Colorado, for so many years. I had it for 18 years. It was like 12 years before I had to make a fucking payment, but because it was a Northeastern truck, naturally you got this stuff called, rock salt, brine, and we know what that does to metal, and that's where I was headed. And it's unfortunate it was costing as much, to fix that as it was making the payments on the Cruze. And Santa Cruz, not to be confused with the Chevy Cruze. That's a completely different vehicle, just so we're clear. But, anyhow, it's basically, they're all doing this on purpose. They don't want people to fix their cars. They want you to have to do this on this time and on this time. And I know when I first had the, Colorado, you got the leaflet where it says, recommended service, keyword recommended. If you didn't do it, you weren't going to get dicked over on the warranty. And, like I said in my video, old type versus new, the irony of it is the fucking motor, I'd say the fucking motor in the Santa Cruz alone costs more than the fucking Tracker did brand new in 1990. Talk about the irony of that, right? And, these, I've seen other videos where, $800, $900, $1,000 car payments. Is that for one car, or are they making multiple payments? And like I said, when I got the Cruze, that was the most affordable thing that I could find. Well, barring the Nissan Frontier, but the problem with that is Nissan was jacking the prices up everywhere I went. $10K over MSRP. At least the place where I went. Somebody else might have said something different. And if Nissan didn't do that, I probably would have ended up with that, or hell, maybe like a lesser expensive, Ford Maverick. But again, it's unfortunate. They had what they're doing now, and I think the other video was making the point where they're only doing the top expensive trims. What happened to the days when you just get a basic vehicle? They don't want to sell that because, it basically reduces, the profit margin. They know they're going to get more when they sell one $50,000 Tacoma, versus, two lesser expensive trims, which, to me kind of doesn't make sense. Because the lesser expensive trims for the Tacoma, I think, were around $30K. So wouldn't it make more money to sell the two lesser expensive trims than the one that's $50K? The math ain't math in there, And again, I think they just want to push the $50K one, because people are all about, all the bells and whistles. And, mind you, some of them are nice. Like, for example, if you saw my GPS video, that's actually nice because it's right there, Sure, most people use Google Maps or some other map or Apple, Cop or whatever. And, they plug their phone, got to do that and that. And in most areas, that probably would work a little better because it's much easier because, it autofills. Whereas, with the GPS, you tend to think you got to put in the exact address. You can't fat finger it. I actually did that once, when I was looking at the address for a tire place. I fucking totally fat fingered it, and I was going around in circles. And then I had to fucking, prove my point wrong, and then type it in Google Maps, and I did it that way. And it took me right there. So, but, again, even though the GPS is really good at pulling stuff up, because I suspect, they steal their information from Google Maps, but, because it's internal in the vehicle, it's not connecting to, in my case, it's not connecting to Hyundai Drive or Cloud or whatever. It's an internal storage in the vehicle. So that's why, it can only store so much information. It might pull it and store it that way and then kind of connect. And, it could probably store a lot, but, again, when you start saving entries, it just, that takes up space. And, so again, so there's ups and downs, but, for that instance, I preferred using the built-in GPS, because it's right there. Anyhow, so, my point is I've seen all these videos, just talking about, the cost of cars and like how much stuff does someone really need? And how much car does somebody really need? Like the fucking, even my video, the salesman saying, the Ranger is almost like the new old school F-150 because they're almost the same fucking size, barring an 8-foot bed. Because that's what the full, a regular cab F-150, had the 8-foot bed. So barring that aspect, but the body size, it's almost the fucking same, In fact, let me just actually watch this guy's video a little bit.
Channel where I walk around used cars so you don't have to, but you should because smell is free and pictures lie. So today we're going to take a look at this 2011 Chevy Impala LS. That's right. LS stands for luxury sedan, or maybe low-key sleeper, because this baby still moves.
My 05 Colorado also said LS.
Not fast, but like steadily, like a divorced dad trying to get his life together. So let's get in this thing and snoop around. But it is very years is middle-aged. But this thing still has energy. This one on the other side, you can tell, is the factory lens. Okay, I don't hate it. So under the hood, you got a 3.5 liter V6. This thing's not going to win any races, but it will get you to work. Bad decisions in college. You could fit luggage, golf clubs, or 3 emotional support duffel bags.
All right, now go ahead and take away because my Geo Track is much older. But that was still, that was still over 4K. But the reason a lot of those older vehicles are so much because there's, some of them have cult followings. I mean, even the old Wranglers, which was another option I could have looked at, they have cult followings, and they're much more simple. And let me just watch this. What the
gang,
6000?
welcome back to the channel where I walk around used cars. Years. Over to the glove box. What do we got? Or is that Mexico? Somebody should check on that.
Oh wow! So it looks like he's covering over like what different thousands of dollars gets you.
Hey gang, Brandon Smith here, Palm Auto Sales. People reach out to me all the time.
So 7,000 will get you that.
$100, $400. Some of the stores in Orlando, you know, their dealer fee is $1,200, and then you've got $400 or $500 in electronic filing fee. You're $1,500, $1,600 just in fees.
That's the Lexus.
And when you're not working with the best credit, leather, you know, this right here, a 2005.
That's a 2005. Okay. So yeah, you know, you see where I'm going with this, and you know, I think, you know, you're gonna start. I think people just are gonna start waking up, and if not, then they really need to fucking wake up to see what's really going on. You know, you know, having like huge car payments doesn't indicate wealth. You know, because if you actually had true wealth, you could buy those cars with cash. You wouldn't need to fucking finance. But you know, I think the reason is, you know, that so many people have to finance their cars is because, you know, one, they don't have cash sitting around, and then there's also the cost of everything else. And I know in some of those videos, you know, some of the commenters were saying, you know, they don't have a car, you know, because of where they live. You know, I guess, you know, one uses a scooter. You know, yeah, that'll suck in the rain, of course. Of course, that's why you don't go out in the rain. But I imagine they live in a larger metropolitan area. You know, and they live very close to work. You know, you can get an e-bike and, you know, or a bus pass, you know, depending on where you live. Now, unfortunately, you know, that's not the case. That's not the case everywhere. I mean, not, you know, the infrastructure and, you know, the public transit system, you know, isn't the greatest. You know, and that's why so many people have to have cars. You know, it's you know, it's unfortunate, and you know, I know, you know, obviously, you know, in Canada, you know, a lot of them have to have cars. You know, I'll use Russia as another example. You know, Russia's like Europe's version of Canada. You know, where most of the population is huddled next to the neighboring country. You know what I'm saying? You know, so I think in Russia's case, you know, Ukraine, you know, Poland, you know, Belarus, you know, and so on and so on. You get my point. Canada, the U.S. The majority of Canadians are huddled right by the border. You know, like population here, one there, a couple up there. You know, so obviously, you know, you need cars up there. You know, so, you know, if you don't have a car, you know, or you can't get a license or whatever, you know, to get a car, you know, you're pretty much fucked. You got to rely on other people. But, you know, that's a whole nother topic for another time. Anyhow, yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I'll talk to you.